Hi guys, I'd like to take the opportunity to tell you what sets Advantage lifts apart from the competition that's out there. You know, when you're surfing the internet, they all tell you that, hey, we got the best lift. Well, I'd like to show you what makes ours the best lift. First thing I want to talk about that I think is important is our post. This is a 5x5 square post, not a C-channel type lift. This is solid square post. And then we have a 6x6 steel sleeve that completely wraps around this post. What that does for you, the consumer, is you don't get the wiggle wobble. When you have a C-channel lift and you have your slider on the inside of that lift, you're open to the middle. So you get lateral movement back and forth with that lift. You can ask anybody that has it. There's lots of movement with that type of lift. With our lift being the outside slider, there's no tolerance for that to move. We're completely tied in around the box. So it makes it so much more stable. And you know what? It's a peace of mind to you when you're underneath there pulling a tranny off of the engine studs that lift doesn't sway and move. This is going to be very solid. It makes it to where you want to use the lift instead of being afraid to use the lift. You know, some other things that we have in there. I want you to look at, we have a secondary lock. So if our 1/2-inch cable, which everybody else in the market will use a 3/8, we're using a 1/2-inch cable. If that were to fail, we have another lock. Here's the axle for it, and it's inside of this post. It's just right above our primary lock. And so if for some reason a cable did fail, you had slack in the cable, this is spring loaded. And this would fly open, which would engage this lock into the post, keeping this from ever coming down. We've tried to cover all the areas. If something went wrong, do we have a fix for it? And that would be our fix for if a cable were to fail, we have a secondary lock that would engage that. Now, another thing I want to show you is how this operates with our locks, because I, again, think this is the best lock system out on the market. You'll notice when I raise this lift up, this is going to raise up. You're going to see this handle move about a 1/2 inch. That tells me at that point I'm able to open up my locks. Now, you notice I didn't have to go get an air hose and hook air to it to disengage my locks. This is what's called a mechanical lock. By me pushing this open, that's going to open up all 4 locks on each post. And I put a high tension spring on this lock. So if something were to go wrong, I just step back and let go of the handle. They're going to fly back. And now that lock is going to engage in one of these cutouts of my solid square post, which is lots of strength. So that's a nice feature that I don't have to worry about an airline that's going to have moisture in it and then them cylinders are going to get corroded up and not operate correctly. This is all mechanical. So now if I'm going to lower this, I want to hold this open and then I'm going to release my hydraulic release valve and you're going to see the lift come down. Nice and smooth operation. I would hold that open until I got past my bottom lock and then I can let go of that handle and it'll go onto the floor. Now if I'm going up, all I do is push the button. You're going to hear the locks ratchet. And did you hear that strong pop? That's telling you that they're engaging into that post with force, which that's what you want to hear. You don't want it to be softly and wondering if that got engaged into the lock. And then I want you to watch as I lower this. Watch how that lock goes inside the post and it nests in there, just like a deadbolt goes inside a door. Now that is engaged into the post and I have a bridge that is built over here. This is resting on the top of the lock. What it does, it relieves a lot of pressure on this axle. So I am a very downforce, solid locking position, the best lock system in the market. And then on top of that, instead of a 3/4 inch axle or a 1-inch axle, we have 1 3/16 axle. So it's a very solid axle that everything is riding on there as well. You know, I'm talking about our locks engaging into the post. What you'll see with a lot of competitors on that C-channel, they either have 2 different types of lock. They're going to have a welded tab onto that C-channel that the lock is going to set onto that tab. And again, if you remember, you have this lateral movement. So that lock just slides back and forth on that welded tab. Or you have the other type that has a hanging ladder bar that hangs from the top of the post and it flops around in the back of the column. And so when you go down, you're hoping that that lock is engaging on that ladder bar that moves. And you know, that's only as good as the weld that bracket is welded to the bolt that is going through the top cap. So this is by far the safest way to put your lift on a lock. We use a 2x4 by 1/4 inch cross arm normally. Then we go and plate it with 3/16 on the outside. There is no flex, no bow in this cross arm, very solid. You'll see a lot of other companies, they'll take a 3/4 inch hole and drill right here, and they'll drill right here. We're in the middle of the cross arm. What do you think that hole does? That weakens this cross arm, because what it is, it's for their casters. They run a pin through there, and that weakens up this cross arm so you don't have the strength. We have plenty of strength there by adding that cross arm. You'll also notice on ours, we take this rail. There's a rail right here that's welded onto our runways. There's two purposes for that rail. It's a J channel. It gives strength to our track. It makes it stiffer, so we don't have any flex or bow in there. But the second thing, our jack trays roll very nice, back and forth with ease onto that rail. You'll also notice all the linkages are bigger. They're not flimsy. When you have our locks, that we have our bolts going into our locks, they're threaded. So we got a shoulder bolt that goes in, makes it solid, and I don't have a bolt and a nut that I have to worry about coming off over time. I want you to look at our base plates down here. This is a 5/8 inch thick base plate, biggest in the industry. The reason we do that is so when you weld this post to that plate, it creates heat. It wants to warp that base plate. And a lot of lifts, they already got a warp to it, and so you're on a rocking chair before you even get started. We want to start our lift with a strong, firm foundation, and that's why we do the 5/8 inch plate and weld it to there, give it a nice solid fit. Now, you'll walk over here, and I want to talk to you a little bit on the other side. I'd like to show you some close-ups of some little things that we do that make a difference with us as well. Number one, I want you to see, I told you about this axle is 1 3/16 in size. Very nice. But on top of that, we recessed it out, and I have a grease zerk inside there. So when you put grease to that, we have a 5-inch pulley all the way around. Most companies have 4. There are some out there that have a 3-inch diameter pulley. Well, when we have a 5-inch diameter, that's not quite as sharp as turn that this cable's having to make. So it's better wear on your cables for longevity. We have a bushing with our pulleys. A bushing, we're looking for strength. There are some companies out there who tell you, hey, we have ball bearings in there. We don't want ball bearings. Ball bearings, if this was a high speed, creating lots of heat, we would look at a ball bearing. But this is not. It's a slow pulling, slow turning pulley, and a bushing is going to give 100% coverage around the axle. So we're looking for strength. And when we add grease to it, you're going to have longevity. You won't have to worry about changing that out. Another thing that we've done, you'll see the snap ring on the outside of this axle. That is, if this collar were ever to come loose, it couldn't come off, which that's kind of an important thing. Another little thing that some you don't even see that this set screw? Most of them will the set screw will go down and just hit the top of the axle. Well, we put a little hole, indent in that axle to where that set screw goes down inside, so it cannot come off of there. Another benefit. See this right here? This is what's called a cable keeper. This is a bolt that runs through and attaches to the cross arm, and it's right beside the pulley. This cable cannot come off of that pulley until I remove that bolt. If you ever got slack in the lift and slack in this cable, it a lot of times will pop off. Now it's rotating on the axle instead of rotating on your pulley, and it'll cut the cable in two. So this will solve that, and it's a much safer way. You'll also notice that our cable, I referred to it a minute ago, but this is a 1/2-inch cable. And you know what? We have tested this. ALI has tested this. This is 22,500 pound test rated. Not by us. I'm not just telling you that, picking a number. ALI tested that, and it's come back and said that. There are lots of guys out there in the market, they haven't tested their cables. They'll tell you they're fine. Or we're pre-stretched, or we're airline cables, or we're aircraft cables. This is a cable that's been tested at 22,500 pounds. And guys, remember, this is a 9,000 pound lift. So that's per cable. So we've got way more capacity in this cable than we need. We like overkill when we're building this lift. That's what it's all about. Now we have the opportunity, with the lift raised up, I'm going to tell you some of the benefits that we offer underneath the lift as well, that I couldn't show you from the top. I want to start right here. This is 3/8 material, a thicker material, which is welded to our runways, and then comes and bolts to our cross arms. What that does gives us a true fit. So when we bolt that tight, we have a very true fit and a stout piece of metal that is forming that. You'll also, when we're talking about making it stouter, you'll notice this right here. It runs the whole length of the track. This boxes in our runways. So we take and weld it right here, as you see, and then it's welded to the top of our runway underneath. So it boxes that in, which gives us more strength. We have no flex or bow in these runways. Not only do we do that on the inside of the track, but you'll notice right here on the outside of the track, in the middle, we've boxed that in so we don't get any flex in the middle on the outside of that runway. Then if you come on down here, you're going to see all of these loops. These loops hold our hydraulic hose away from the cable. There are companies out there that have this cable running through here and the cable rubs on the hose, and then it's going to cut the hose and you have a leak. That's why we put multiple loops in there to hold that hose completely out of the way of the moving cables. Then if you come on down here, you're going to see this is a box out for our port of the cylinder. What's inside this rectangle box is what's called a velocity valve. I like to call it an anti-burst valve. So again, I want to tell you things that we've learned over the years. If there's a problem that could happen, do we have a fix for it? So let's just say a hose burst. Now all of a sudden you've got a lot of fluid coming out of that hose where it broke. Well, we have a valve built inside here, not a flow restrictor. This is a valve that reads that, and if it bursts, it shuts the cylinder off completely. So now it can't come down. You won't have oil running all over your floor. You'll have a little bit from right there where the hose broke, but the valve is going to shut it off, and it's safety keeping the lift from coming down. A nice feature to have involved with that. If you move on down here, we have our cable block. This cable block, you'll notice that our cables are going through that, and one thing different than others, we have adjustments on our cable block below the lift as well as on top of the lift on the top of the caps. So you can adjust both directions to get more adjustments. You're also going to notice that we're at the top here, because this is a honed cylinder. This rotates as it goes out. What we do is when that rotates, we have a pad at the very top of our block that's it will not let it scratch metal on metal. Keeps your bottom of your runway really nice and not all scratched up. I want you also to look at these cables, our swedging. We do a 3-inch swedge on our cables, so where that is completely swedged, connects that cable with a lot of material. A lot of competitors, they're only a 1-inch swedge. So that means that cable is inserted in and it's only closed at 1 inch. We're giving you 3-inch of coverage, way stronger. Now if you come on down here, you're going to notice we have 5-inch diameter pulleys instead of a 4-inch diameter pulley. Like I alluded to earlier, you're not turning that corner quite as sharp. You'll also notice our cable keepers. This keeps the cable onto the pulley. It cannot come off with these bolts that are running up through here, keeping that mounted to the pulley. That's important because a lot of times if you bring this down and catch a lock, get it womping, you're going to have slack in the cable. That's going to pop off and then it's going to run down here. That will cut your cable in two. This fixes that problem. You'll have no more issues with it. You'll also notice that we have a grease zerk in each one of our axles. The nice thing about having a grease zerk is you're able to lube that bushing that's inside this pulley. Most of them are just a dry bushing, so it's going to rub in there and rub and it's going to wear, and then pretty soon you're going to have to replace it because your pulley will wobble. By adding grease to that, that's going to make the longevity of that bushing last much, much longer. And you're going to find every place there's an axle, we have a grease zerk. So there's a total of 8. You have 2 at this end right here. At the other end of this runway, there are 2 more that you can grease for your underneath pulleys. And then on each corner of the cross arm, you'll see that there's a grease zerk on the axles there as well that you'll want to lube, and probably do that, I'd say, every 6 months or once a year, depending on your use of the lift. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our power pack. Number one, we're using Butcher Hydraulics, #1 hydraulic power maker in the world, the best out there. So we've searched out to find the best one. It is ETL approved as well. The thing that I want to talk to you about is that we're using a 1.5 horsepower motor. which is adequate for a 9,000 pound lift. And it runs on a 120 volt, 110, 20 amp breaker. Now you're going to hear some of our competitors out there say, oh, hey, we have a 3-horse motor, 110, 20 amp. Well, you just need to ask any electrician that's out there, running a 3-horse motor on a 28 breaker is not good on the components on it. That's why maybe they only give you a 2-year warranty on their motor versus we give you a full 5-year warranty on our power pack.